Oh no, he didn't, did he? Welcome to Watch Mojo UK, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 cringeworthy moments from the Inbetweeners.
Every time I don't want one, it's there, and yet the one time I actually need it, nothing!
Before we begin, if you enjoy this video, please subscribe for more great content. These are the awkward, eyebrow-raising, and traumatizing scenes from the franchise that made our skin crawl and reflect on the sheer calamity of adolescence, and all of the unreliable friends that go with it.
Oh, Christ.
Number 10, Simon tries to talk dirty.
You do want to make love to me, don't you?
Yeah.
Come on, we've all done it at some point. This little snippet of teenage courting reminds us all just how awkward it can be in the early stages of relationship. After Simon's girlfriend Tara tells him she likes imagining things to get her in the mood for the old you-know-what, he takes it upon himself to woo her. What starts out as playful foreplay, with mentions of boobs and whatnot, soon spirals into what we can only describe as, well, a threat of football hooligan-esque proportions.
I'm gonna fanny off, you twat!
Okay.
Number 9, the Poo Chute.
Sorry, that's my irritating bowels.
Next two up.
Right.
Water parks. What could be better except for 2 water parks, obviously? But of course, it's never always fun and games with this lot. In the second Inbetweeners movie, the 4 lads are in Australia and, as always, trying to impress the ladies. One scenario sees them racing down a water slide. Unfortunately, Neil has irritable bowel syndrome and is stood at the top of the slide.
But it's not bowels, they're disabled! Oh no.
You can see it coming. In a moment of weakness, Neil accidentally sends a tear torpedoing after Will, who watches over his shoulder in terror. Could it get any worse? High five, Will. Cue the sequence from Jaws.
Yeah, you are! Yeah!
No!
Number 8, Will plays the guitar.
Sure you got this?
Yeah, think so.
There's quite a lot of people, so
Yeah, I can handle it.
Another entry from the same film next, which proves that Will really can kill the cool of anything, even playing the guitar. Sitting around a campfire and hoping to impress Katie, Will attempts to change the mood by singing a song. A slow, emotional song originally sung by a woman, in fact, Roberta Flack. And Will isn't the type of person to hold out on the high notes either, on the contrary.
The first time ever I saw your face.
What is he doing?
As if it could get any weirder, someone starts to rhythmically dance around the fire before taking off their top. Like an intoxicating lava lamp, you know you want to look away, but you just can't.
Your face, your face, your face, your face.
Number 7, Dance Floor Extravaganza.
You dance over near them, make the eyes, then get them to dance with you.
Really?
Dance floors. Either your worst enemy or a platform for brilliance. We'll let you decide which one applies here. On a holiday in Malia, this scene sees Neil, Will, and Simon jiving across the floor of a club to a table full of girls. In all fairness to the boranged-faced Neil, he's throwing some pretty cool shapes. But as a collective, with Will bullet dodging side to side and Simon marathoning on the spot, it's an absolute disaster.
Am I doing it right? Am I in time? Maybe a bit out, but not so you notice.
Jay, on the other hand, like us, watches in utter disbelief from afar. At least they synchronize at the end, sort of.
Sorry, do you mind if I come and talk to you? Because you look nice, and frankly, that's just humiliating for everyone involved.
Number 6, Jay buys an ice cream.
I bet her body's still pretty fit.
Thought I'd find you here.
The field trip to Swanage is legendary in the Inbetweeners series for many different reasons. The one that tops the awkward allotment of agony for Jay, though, is when he goes to buy an ice cream. In search of the legendary Swanage MILF, who apparently has sex with pupils on school trips, Jay starts getting a little frustrated and decides to hedge his bets by confronting an old woman at an ice cream stand. After some small talk, Jay comes out and asks her to, well, obviously she isn't the one he thinks she is, so all Jay gets in return is a confused look from an elderly woman.
Are you the woman who sucks schoolboys off?
Sorry?
Can you suck me off?
Hey, at least he comes away with the cornetto. Number 5, Will goes rogue with a Frisbee.
You lot are so gay. Why aren't we playing football?
A frisbee in the park? What could possibly go wrong? Well, as always, the guys find a way to try and impress some girls, and what is intended to be a harmless game of catch turns into Will apologising for hitting a woman in a wheelchair with said frisbee.
Oh my god, I'm sorry. Sorry.
Will has a history of picking on disabled people, we all know from his trip to Thorpe Park, but this incident takes things a step further. After apologising profusely, Will then attempts to retrieve his frisbee, which doesn't end well. At least he kept the receipt, not like it matters.
Hey, it's my frisbee! I've got a receipt! I've got a receipt!
Number 4, Simon and Will's awkward goodbye.
Feisty one you are!
Being trapped in a love triangle can be a nightmare, especially when it's with one of your best friends. The story goes that Will fancies Lauren, but Lauren doesn't fancy Will, she fancies Simon.
Good night then, Will.
Oh no, it's okay. I'll wait for Si. You can say anything you want in front of me. We're mates.
So when Simon is saying goodnight to Lauren and Will can't take a hint, we have to watch the two hug, as Will observes like some sort of creepy jealous weirdo. The hug seems to go on forever, as does Will's constant nagging for Simon to call it a night. Seriously mate, give it a rest.
Si! Come on now, mate!
Number 3, Jay goes snorkeling.
Do you promise this will be properly filthy, yeah?
Oh yes, like a bomb explode from in penis, so sexy like,
Jay's prone to a few awkward masturbation encounters, but nothing quite hits the highs or sheer creativity of this snorkeling endeavour. Sat on his bed naked, laptop open, box of ham at the ready and wearing snorkeling gear. Classic Jay. What's the worst thing that could happen? What about your mum and little sister walking in on you? That's pretty bad, right? And to make matters worse, Jay's mum has something pretty daunting to tell him. You'll never hear "Tell me you love me" the same way again.
Jay, can you come downstairs, please? Your grandfather's died.
You got a lady there, you bad boy.
Number 2, Simon goes balls out.
Are you alright? Please don't distract me.
Some people will do anything to cozy up to a girl they fancy, including sporting speedos and being paraded along a catwalk like a dog. A little too focused on impressing Carly and not getting a boner, Simon morphs into character and heads out, unfortunately with a rather serious wardrobe oversight. Balls out, face scrunched into an aggressive scowl and thrusting away, Simon, totally unaware of his flushing, confidently owns the show as a wave of gasps bellow throughout. He intends on impressing Carly, but the whole thing backfires.
You ruined my big night. I thought you liked me, you arsehole.
Hey, Carls, it's alright, it's cool, come on. Carly, listen, please.
Before we unveil our top pick, here's a few honourable mentions.
Right, what sort of thing are you looking for?
Some beefeater gin?
Okay, so how about 2 bottles?
Excellent.
Do you want some wine?
Christ, no, we're not made of money. And I'll have some extra strong mints for those who are drink driving.
All right then, funny boy. Make me laugh without undressing.
Oh, no. Phil? Oh, Jesus. I thought it was a fart, sir. I thought it was safe.
Number 1, Will and Charlotte have sex. Nearly.
Just to confirm, we are going to have sex.
Yes, I can confirm that.
Of all the people in this eclectic group of misfits, Will is probably the last one you'd expect to actually sleep with someone. But after a series of baffling events, Will bags himself a girlfriend in Charlotte, vacates her to a bedroom and starts to put on the moves. He even flat out asks Charlotte if they're going to have sex, to which she replies yes. But it's not her unwillingness that's the problem, it's Will's, grinding?
Look, don't move your whole body, just kind of move your hips, you know?
Right. Sorry.
Yeah, you know?
Just my hips?
Yeah.
For a few moments, we are unfortunately treated to an aerial view of Will grinding on her as she laughs beneath. The best part? Will asks her for confirmation on whether or not he just lost his virginity. Ugh, brilliant.
I'm not going to count that one.
Can I count it, though?
Probably not, no.
Oh, okay.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out these other great clips from Watch Mojo UK and subscribe for more great content.